Hi, welcome once again to our YouTube channel. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. Really appreciate you. I quickly want to look at the Waec 2024 biology practical specimen. The specimens that have been released by Waec for this year's practical exam in biology. So those are the things that we want to look at right now, and we'll be picking it up from the specimen A. So here we have listed all of the specimens that will be used. So specimen A is the gill of fish. The specimen B is the whole liver of domestic fowl with gallbladder intact. Specimen C is the lungs of the domestic fowl. Specimen D is the gizzard of the domestic fowl. Specimen E is the intestine of the domestic fowl. Specimen F is ginger rhizome. Specimen G is the onion bulb. Specimen H is the leaf of the Bryophyllum. Specimen J is the cassava stem. Specimen K is the cassava tuber. We have specimen L to be the thoracic vertebrae. We have specimen M to be humerus bone. Specimen N is mango seed. We have specimen P to be femur bone. Specimen Q is the lumbar vertebrae, and specimen R is the orange seed. So these are the specimens that we'll be working on, and we'll pick them one after the other. So starting with the specimen A, we said that specimen A is the gill of a fish. So it is a respiratory organ that helps these organisms, it helps the fishes or the aquatic lives to carry out respiration. So it is found in the majority of the aquatic organisms. The gill is responsible for exchange of gas, that is, it helps them to extract dissolved oxygen from the water in which they are found, and then it also helps them to eliminate carbon dioxide. Now, this gill, which is also called lamella, is responsible for the transfer of ions alongside its function of carrying out gaseous exchange. It is also responsible for transfer of ions. And then the gills of some of these animals, we have like the hermit crab. It gives them the opportunity or the ability to actually survive outside water or out of water, particularly on land, when they are not in water. Now, this is what they do when they are not in water. It is just needing their body to be moist. When they have their skin to be moist, they will still be able to carry out some level of respiration when they are out of water. Now, there is a particular part of the body of the fish around the head region called the operculum. It is a covering that covers the gill in the body of the organism. So it is found on both sides of the pharynx of that organism. That is, the pharynx is also called the throat. So the fishes, they actually absorb water that is rich in oxygen. They absorb it into their body through the mouth, and then it goes into the body of the organism through the left part, and then the gills help to absorb all the oxygen in that water, and then it replaces it with carbon dioxide or oxygen deficient water, and then it is being sent out of the gills through the operculum, and then it allows oxygen deficient water infused with carbon dioxide to be sent out of the body through the gill slits on the right part. So basically that is what we need to talk about looking at the specimen A, which is the gill of the fish. So let us quickly see some pictures so we'll be able to drive home our points. Now this is an example of the gill. We have this as the gill. Now if we look at this part here is called the gill arc. This place here is called the gill arc, and then inside it, where we have some sharp edges here around this place here, we have what is called the gill rakers, and all of these are the filaments. This part here, they are referred to as the filament. All of these parts here, they are referred to as the filament, while this part here is the gill. This part that I'm using the pointer on is called the gill arc. Let me show us another picture that will help us understand this better. Now look at it very well. Looking at this now, this is the gill arc. This part here is the gill arc, and then all of these sharp edges or spikes, they are called the gill rakers, and then we have all of these parts here to be the gill filament. So that is what specimen A is talking about. So let us move to specimen B now. Specimen B is the liver of the domestic fowl with gallbladder. The liver of the domestic fowl with gallbladder. Now, this animal, the domestic fowl, it has its scientific name to be the Gallus domesticus. That is the scientific name, as written here, Gallus domesticus. Now, we also have its taxonomy here written as well, starting with the kingdom. So the kingdom is Animalia. We have the phylum to be the Chordata. We have the class to be apes. We have the order to be the Californies. Then the family is the Phasianidae, and then the genus is Gallus, while the species is Gallus domesticus. So those are the levels of classification that we have for the domestic fowl. Now we are actually talking about the liver. So what is the liver, or what is the function of the liver in this organism? The liver happens to be the largest organ in the body. It helps in the synthesis and the metabolism of fat. Now how does it do that? The liver is very responsible for the production of what we refer to as bile, and this bile is responsible for breaking down fat. That is why we say that it is responsible for the metabolism of fat. So the liver breaks down, balances and creates nutrients from the blood that passes through it. The liver secretes bile, like I said earlier on, it secretes bile, and this bile is stored in the gallbladder, and that is why the gallbladder is coming in this part here. Remember, the specimen is the liver of the domestic fowl with the gallbladder. So it is in the gallbladder that this bile is being stored. Now the bile is a yellowish green or greenish yellow substance. It is found in the gallbladder. I will show us pictures shortly that will help us to understand this very well. So the liver is a bilobed organ that lies ventrally in the abdominal cavity, and it's closely associated with the proventriculus and the spleen in the birds. Looking at the gallbladder, it is a small pear-shaped organ that stores and releases bile, a digestive fluid. Yes, the bile is a digestive fluid that acts solely on the fat, and that is produced by the liver. The gallbladder is also called the cholecyst. The gallbladder is also called the cholecyst, and it houses the bile, which is greenish yellow in color, and it helps to emulsify or break down fat. So let us quickly see some pictures that will help us to understand what we are actually talking about here. Now looking at the pictures, we have this. So this is the liver. We have this to be the liver. You can see it. This is the liver. So it is the bilobed organ of the body. And then this part here that I'm putting the pointer on is what we refer to as the gallbladder. You can see the substance inside it. It feels to be yellowish green or greenish yellow. We can see it. So that is the gallbladder. Let's see another picture. You can see it here as well. So this is the gallbladder. This one that the arrow is pointing at is the gallbladder, and then we have the liver around it. So that is what specimen B is talking about. And so we move to the next specimen, which is specimen C. Specimen C is the lungs of the domestic fowl. The lungs of the domestic fowl. The lungs make up the large part of the respiratory system that aids or allows breathing. Yes, it is responsible for carrying out breathing. The domestic fowl has two symmetrical lungs. It has two symmetrical lungs, and they are connected to the trachea, which is called, or also called, the windpipe. It is actively responsible for the exchange of gas. That is basically what the lungs is responsible for, carrying out gaseous exchange, that is oxygen, taking in oxygen and release of carbon dioxide. The lungs of the domestic fowl is different from those of other vertebrates because the apes or the fowls, they breathe by continuously moving their ribs and their breastbone, because they do not have the ability to possess what we refer to as diaphragm. They don't have diaphragm as such. It is just their ribs and their breastbone, also called the sternum, that carries out continuous contraction and relaxation, bringing about respiration in this organism. So this results to the retention in a constant air volume. If you look at the specimen there, we will have something like this. So we'll be having this. You can see this here is what we have, the lungs. You can see it here. This is the heart, while this one here is the lungs. This is the lungs. So like I said earlier on, it is bilobed. So we have it, and it extends into the bronchioles and into the trachea. You can see this is another lung here. So those are the parts of the lung that we need to look at. Let's see another picture. You can see it here. You can see this picture as well. So it helps us to understand what we are talking about. So this part here is where we have the lungs, and it extends into the trachea. You can see the other lobe of the lungs here, and it extends into the trachea. So that is about the specimen C. And so we move to the next specimen, which is specimen D. In the next specimen, which is specimen D, we have the gizzard of the domestic fowl. The gizzard of the domestic fowl, which is also called the ventriculus. Now, this particular organ is very very thick-walled and muscular. It is thick-walled and it is muscular, primarily because of its function, because it is responsible for grinding, for milling the food or the grains that has been taken into the system by the animal. It is responsible for grinding the food sample that has been taken into the system by these animals. So it mills because of some things that are found inside the gizzard, those sand-like particles that the domestic fowl has already or previously ingested. They are called the grits. Now these grits are responsible for carrying out what we refer to as milling of the food samples eaten by the birds. So gizzards are highly proteinous. When you look at the nutritional value, they are highly proteinous and they contain vitamins such as the vitamin B12, which is cyanocobalamin, which aids brain health. It aids brain health. It is also very rich in zinc, iron, phosphorus, all of which are essential to the body. They are very low in fat and cholesterol content. So gizzards do not have fat, or they have very very low quantity or concentration of fat and cholesterol in them. So let us see what the gizzard looks like. Let's see what the gizzard looks like. So this is what the gizzard looks like. We can see it here. So we said it is thick walled. We can see how thick it is now. We can see the wall. We can see it is very thick walled. So that is what gizzard looks like. We can see it. So all of this inside are the things that have been eaten by the domestic fowl. So it is being grounded or blended by the grits. So we move to the next specimen now, which is Specimen E. Specimen E is the intestine of the domestic fowl. The intestine, which is also called the GIT, the gastrointestinal tract. It is a small part of the intestine that exists immediately after the gizzard. So it begins at the exit of the gizzard. The gizzard grinds and then passes the food sample into the small intestine, and then at the other end it joins into the coca or the colon. So it meets with the coca and the colon at the other end. So it comes from the gizzard and then into the ceca and the colon. Now the intestine is relatively long. It is very long tube with regular diameter or constant diameter, and it comprises of three major parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, as well as the ileum. Now it should be noted that the duodenum is very very distinguished out of these parts of the small intestine. It is very easy to actually distinguish the parts of the duodenum from other parts of the small intestine because it is clearly visible. So let me show us a picture of what we are actually talking about. Let's see this. Now this is the picture of the let me call it the alimentary canal of a bird. So we have it looking like this. So if you look at this part here, you say the small intestine, everything that starts from this is where we have the gizzard. This is the gizzard here. This is the gizzard. This part here that I'm pointing at is the gizzard. So it starts from this place and it coils this way. It moves like this and then into this part here. So this part here is what we refer to as the duodenum. That is the loop here. It is the duodenum. It is the first part immediately after the gizzard, and then other part of the small intestine is what we are seeing coiled like this before it branches at this junction to join the ceca and the colon or the large intestine. So basically that is what the small intestine is talking about. Let's see another picture. We can see another picture. We can see it here as well. So we have the gizzard here, and then immediately from the gizzard we have the duodenum looking like this, and then other parts of the small intestine, the jejunum and the ileum, before it eventually branches to meet the ceca and the colon here. So that is the small intestine for us. So let us talk about the next specimen. The next specimen is Specimen F, which is the ginger rhizome. Specimen F is the ginger rhizome. We call it Zingiber officinale. So that is basically what the scientific name or the botanical name of ginger is. Now the ginger is a flowering plant. It is an herbaceous plant, and it usually grows to become a rhizome. It oftentimes can be budded. So that is what we call it. So it is a ginger root. It is widely used as a spice, also for its medicinal function. It is also used in medicine as well. It is a perennial plant that produces annual pseudostems. That is what we refer to as the first stem. It produces annual pseudostems that can actually be used in the propagation of another stem, and this is rolled up in bases of leaves, and it falls of about 1 meter. It makes up about 1 meter in height. It bears narrow leaf blades. It carries narrow leaf blades. Now if you look at the taxonomy of this particular crop, we have it listed here, where we have the first one, the kingdom, we have the Plantae. The phylum is the Trachyphyta. We have the class to be the Liliopsida, and then order is the Zingiberales. We have the family to be the Zingiberaceae, while the genus is the Zingiber, and the species is the Officinale. So that is the classification of this particular crop when looking at it. So quickly, let's see the structure or the figure to help us buttress our point. So this is what we refer to as the ginger rhizome. You can see this is the ginger rhizome, and if you want to see the plant, this is how the plant looks. So this is the plant of the ginger rhizome. And so we move to the next specimen. Specimen G is the onion bulb. The onion bulb is Specimen G, and its scientific name is the Allium cepa. That is the botanical name of this particular crop, the Allium cepa. Looking at this place here, we have the taxonomy or the classification. The kingdom is Plantae, the phylum is the Trachyphyta. We also have the class to be the Liliopsida, and then the order this time around is the Asparagales, while the family is the Alliaceae, then the genus is Allium, and the species is cepa. Onion is a vegetable but can be referred to as a spice, particularly when it is dried and blended or grounded into powder. So we use it specifically, or we use it for various things. We use it as vegetable, we add it to our food, we use it for so many things. It can also be added to food samples as spice. The bulb of this onion is rich in, like we said, is a rich vegetable that grows on the ground, and it contains many vitamins and minerals, as well as antioxidants that are responsible for eliminating free radicals. They help to alleviate oxidative stress. So onion have low calories. They do not have energy producing capability. And then we have two types of this onions. Basically we have two types. We have the white and then the purple or the brown onion. So those are the types of onions that we have. So this is what the onion looks like. You can see this is the purple onion. So this is how it looks, and then we have a labeled part of it looking like this, where we have the adventitious root, we have the stem, we have the bulb scale. That is the fleshy part of the organism. It is actually what flakes into the leaves. So that is what the part of the onion bulb looks like. And so we move to the next specimen. So the next specimen, Specimen H, is the leaf of the Bryophyllum. It's a popular plant with very, very known medicinal function. The Bryophyllum. It is also called we also call it, in some areas they call it the cathedral bell. Some people call it the miracle leaf, or it can also be called the air plant. These are all names that have been given to this particular plant just because of its medicinal function. It is rich in steroids, the flavonoids, the fatty acids, etc., usually propagated using its leaves and its stem. Now the scientific name of this crop is called the Bryophyllum pinnatum. The Bryophyllum pinnatum. Now we have the classification here, the taxonomy. It belongs to the kingdom Plantae. The phylum is the Spermatophyta. The class is the Angiosperma. We have the order to be the Saxifragalis. Then we have the family to be the Crassulaceae, and then the genus is Bryophyllum, while the species is the pinnatum. It is also known, like I said, like it is also called cathedral bell, the miracle leaf, etc. It is succulent plant. It is a succulent plant, meaning it has high or enormous amount of fluid or water in it, and it is called its name Bryophyllum because of its growth. That is, it grows using, or it produces its roots on its leaves or during budding. That is basically how it carries out its own reproduction or its propagation. It is a medicinal plant that is used in the treatment of many ailments such as fever, cough, headaches, etc. So if you decide to look at what we are talking about, this is an example of a Bryophyllum. We have a Bryophyllum here. So this is what it looks like, the miracle leaf or the cathedral bell. So we can see here now that it is carrying out its own growth. This is a leaf, and then on the leaf at these edges here you are seeing other leaves growing up. That is how this particular plant is reproduced. So that is why it is called the Bryophyllum, because it actually produces its own leaves with adventitious roots. You can see all of the roots underneath it. It produces its own leaves with adventitious roots emanating from an existing plant. That is about the Bryophyllum. And so we talk about the next specimen, Specimen J, which is the cassava stem. The cassava stem. Now I will explain these two together, cassava stem and cassava tuber, because specimen J is the cassava tuber, like we can see here. Specimen K is the cassava tuber, while specimen J is the cassava stem. So the scientific name of the cassava is the Manihot esculenta. The Manihot esculenta. So we can see it in some textbooks to be esculentus. Now this is the classification here. The kingdom is Plantae, the phylum is the Spermatophyta, the class is the Magnoliopsida. The Magnoliopsida, that is the class. Then the order, we have it to be the Euphobiates. The Euphobiates is the order. Then the family, we have it to be Euphobiaceae. Then genus is Manihot, as well as the species being Esculentus or Esculenta. Although it is perennial, but it is cultivated annually and extensively. It is cultivated in a large scale and it is cultivated extensively. In its raw form, it contains cyanide, particularly the tuber. In its raw form, it contains cyanide that is very, very toxic to the health. I'm talking about this, that is the stem. Okay, let me just show us the stem. This is what the stem looks like. You can see it here. So at these edges here, when we look at it, that is how its own propagation is done. That is why it is called a stem propagated crop or plant, a stem propagated plant. So we can see something here growing out. This is an outgrowth from this stem. So we just need to insert this stem into the soil, and then with all necessary germination requirements, this particular outgrowth will sprout and it becomes a whole new plant again. So that is what the cassava stem is about. And then when we look at the next one, which is the cassava tuber, the tuber and the leaves of the cassava are rich in carbohydrates and calories. They are used in producing range of household food materials like garri, fufu, mashed cassava, cassava chips, and the rest of those. They are also used in producing bread, french fries, cassava flakes, and cassava cakes, etc. So you can decide to use them in whatever form you choose to. Now if you look at this, you will see an example of the cassava tuber. So this is the cassava stem with the tuber, but let me just show us the tuber alone. We can see this is the cassava tuber. So this is the cassava tuber, and that is what we are using. You can see another picture here showing the cassava tuber. So that is what we are using for explaining this particular specimen, Specimen J and Specimen K. So we move to the next specimen now. Specimen L is the thoracic vertebrae. The thoracic vertebrae, which is part of the exoskeleton. It is found in the chest region, articulating from the backbone to the sternum. It carries it is responsible for carrying the ribs they emanate from the backbone, and it articulates with the sternum, joined by some cartilages. Now there are a set of 12 vertebrae that belong to this particular region called the thoracic region of the vertebral column. They are found on the back, to which all of the ribs are attached, ranging from the first thoracic vertebrae, which is the T1, to the last one, which is the T12. Now the thoracic vertebrae happens to be the second set of the vertebrae found on the backbone. We have the cervical followed by the thoracic. So they are 12 in number. They start at the base of the neck, they are directly after the last cervical vertebrae, and then they end at the bottom of the ribs. That is where they end, directly on the first lumbar vertebrae. It is especially rigid and stable. They are very, very rigid and stable, and that is why they rarely come into any form of injury. They are surrounded by muscles, nerves, and tendons, as well as ligaments, all of which are performing special functions in the movement and flexibility of that organism. They protect the spinal cord and branch into spinal nerves. That is another function of the thoracic vertebrae. They protect the spinal cord. They protect the spinal cord because in all of the vertebrae that passes through the backbone, we have a uniform passageway for the spinal cord, which is the foramen that is found there, the central foramen. It permits the movement of the spinal cord through the vertebrae, and so they also provide attachment for the ribs, and then they support the chest and the abdomen. If you need to see picture, this is what we'll be looking at. This is what a typical picture of the thoracic vertebrae looks like, and you can see it here also. So here I am showing us starting from this one here, this bone that carries this rib here. You can see the one that goes to the clavicle, this bone, this rib that goes to the clavicle, and then you count 1 2 3. You find out that by the time you get to this place here, you have counted 12. So all of those bones in that region, they belong to the thoracic region. So that is what we refer to as the thoracic vertebrae. So that is about the thoracic vertebrae. So we move to the next specimen. Specimen M is the next specimen there, and that is the humerus bone. It is part of the appendicular skeleton, because when we look at the skeleton, we have two types of the skeleton, and this part is found in the appendicular skeleton. The other part is the axial skeleton, that is the brachial box or the skull, as well as the backbone. But for the appendicular skeleton, it carries all of the appendages. It carries all of the appendages like the limbs, the upper limbs and the lower limbs. So this particular bone we are talking about is found in the upper arm or the upper extremity of the body, and it is the largest bone in that region. It articulates at the shoulder in a joint that is called the glenoid joint. This glenoid joint carries the clavicle, that is the shoulder, the collarbone, and then the shoulder blade, as well as the head of the humerus. Now the head of the humerus is a ball-like substance. It has a ball-like material, and so it fits into a socket. So we call that particular joint a ball and a socket joint, because the head fits into the socket perfectly, and this joint, the glenoid cavity, permits movement in all planes, in multiple planes, and that is why we are able to move that particular part of the body in relatively all planes. So at the elbow, that is at the lower end of the humerus, is where we have the humerus connecting two smaller bones called the ulna and the radius. This is what I'm talking about. This is what the humerus looks like. Now, looking at this part of it, at the head of it here, we can see that it is having a round shape at the head of the humerus here. So this part here fits into the shoulder joint, which is called the glenoid cavity, and then it is permitting multiple movement planes. And then at the base here, this particular part of the bone, the humerus, connects to two smaller bones called the ulna and the radius. Those are the two bones in the lower arm of the organism. So that is what the humerus is about. So if you look at this now, you can see this is the humerus. At this junction here is where we said that we have the glenoid cavity at this junction here, and underneath the humerus here we have the humerus connected to two smaller bones, the ulna and the radius. So that is that about the specimen. So we move to the next specimen, which is specimen N, the mango seed. Mango seed has its botanical name to be the Magnifera indica. Magnifera indica, that is the botanical name, and it is coming from the classification. The classification, we have the plantae for the kingdom, the phylum is the Trachyphyta, the class we have it to be the Magnoliophyta, and then the order is the Sapindalis. The family we have it to be Anacardiaceae. Then the genus is the Magnifera, as well as the species being indica. This particular plant is a dicot plant, and its fruit has single seeds with two cotyledons. It is a dicot plant, and we know that dicot plants are plants that produce two seed leaves. So the cotyledons are fleshy and they store food. The embryo is usually covered by two layered seed coats. The first one is called the inner tegmen, while the other one is called the outer testa. Now, it carries out epigynous germination because it is a dicot plant. So it carries out epigynous germination. If you look at the nutritional benefits of this particular seed, we have it carrying or possessing the the nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin C, E, K. It also has some other vitamins or nutrients like the potassium, the magnesium, the folate, choline, as well as the beta carotene. It is also very rich in antioxidants that helps to relieve oxidative stress or to eliminate what we refer to as free radicals in the body. Now, the function of this particular fruit, it boosts the immune system, providing and promoting skin and eye health. It is rich in carbohydrate and it has low fat, sodium and cholesterol. It does not have much fat, sodium as well as cholesterol. So if we need to see example of what we are talking about, this is the mango seed. This is the dry mango seed. We can see how it looks. This is another example of the mango seed. So we understand all that has been said about the mango seed. So for the same specimen N, we have the mango seed. The placentation of this particular crop, we have it to be marginal. The marginal is the placentation of this particular crop. And then the type of fruit, it is a drupe. Drupes are simple succulent fruits from a monocarpous pistil, and they have superior ovary. They are usually one-seeded. Yes, these are what we refer to as drupes. So when we look at the type of fruits that we have in this particular seed, the mango seed, it is a fruit and it is a true fruit truly, and then it has single monocarpous system, and then it is it is a succulent pericarp before it becomes a drupe. So those are the classification of this particular mango seed. And so the next specimen, we have specimen P to be the femur bone, or popularly known as the thigh bone. The femur bone, also called the thigh bone. It is also part of the appendicular skeleton. So suffice to say, permit me to tell you this, please. There is a link showing up on the screen right now. I will encourage you to try as much as possible to click on that link. It will help you to understand more of these particular bones that we are talking about all of the bones we have talked about previously and the one we are talking about currently. So it will help you to understand them because they have been actually treated adequately in that video. So please endeavor to watch that video. So like I was saying, this particular thigh bone is found in the lower limb, that is the legs. So it is the long bone, the longest bone in the body, and it is found in the thigh region. Now, it is the longest and strongest bone in the body. It is very responsible for the ability to stand and to move because it supports numerous muscles, tendons, ligaments, as well as parts of the circulatory system. Now, it should be noted that this particular bone helps in the production of bone marrow. It is responsible for the production of bone marrow, and then the head, like that of the humerus, also forms a ball and socket joint in this time around. It is called the acetabulum. It is found in the acetabulum, so it fits into a joint of the hip or the pelvic girdle called the acetabulum. And at the lower end of the joint, or at the lower end of the femur, is where we have the femur being connected with a flat plate or a flat bone called the patella, and then two other bones that extends down the legs called the tibia and the fibula. This is actually what we are talking about. You can see there here, this is the femur, that's the longest bone of the body, and we can see the head there to be round. That is why we call it a ball and a socket joint bone as well. And then we can see this red part here telling us that it is responsible for producing bone marrow. So those are some of the functions of the bone that we are talking about, the femur. So we can see its positioning here. So the head fits into the pelvic girdle called the acetabulum, and then underneath here in front we'll be having the patella, and then two lower bones called the tibia and the fibula. So that is about the femur bone. So we move to the next specimen, which is specimen Q, the lumbar vertebrae. It is part of the axial skeleton, and it is found at the lower back, consisting of successive 5 bones, the L1 to the L5. It is the third set of bone that is found on the vertebral column. It comes immediately after the thoracic, which we have talked about, and then it precedes the sacral column, or the sacral region of the vertebral column. So the L5 bones, we have the L1 to the L5, they make up the lumbar vertebrae. Other structures around the lumbar spine, we have the intervertebral discs, we have the spinal cord as well as the spinal nerves. Now this part of the body, or this part of the vertebra, they are used as attachment points for stability and protection of the organism. That is basically their function. And so this is what we are talking about here. So this is an example of the lumbar vertebrae. We can see it here. Now this was what I was talking about, called the vertebral foramen. It is through this part here that we have the spine passing through, the spinal cord passing through this part here, as well as this place here having the vertebral disc that prevents the bones from rubbing on one another. So basically that is what the lumbar bone or the lumbar vertebrae is talking about. This is another picture that talks about the lumbar vertebrae. Now if you look at it here, now all of these bones preceding this particular vertebrae that we're talking about, where we have the L1, the ones preceding it here, we have the thoracic region, and underneath it here we have the sacral. So the L1 to the L5 make up the lumbar region of the vertebral column. So that is about the lumbar vertebrae. And so we move to the next specimen, which happens to be specimen R, which is the last specimen. That is the orange seed, specimen R. It is also called the citrus sinensis. That is the scientific name or the botanical name, the citrus sinensis. If you look at the classification, taxonomically we have the Plantae as the kingdom. It belongs to the phylum Magnoliophyta. The Magnoliophyta, that is the phylum. Then the class is the Dicotyledon. The order, we have it to be the Sapindalis. The family is the Rhizaceae, and then the genus is citrus, where the species is sinensis. So this particular plant carries out its own placentation as exile. It is exile in placentation, and then spherical outer peel called the epicarp. The outer peel of the orange fruit is called the epicarp, with underlining fibrous layer called the mesocarp, as well as the juicy part of it called the endocarp. If you look at the fruit, the type of fruit that it is a fruit. It is a true fruit which is also produced from the ovary, and it is simple fruit or a single fruit, so it is called the monocarpous fruit. And then it is a succulent fruit, and it is also called the hesperidium. So that is the classification of fruit to which this orange seed belongs. So these are what we refer to as orange seeds. These are orange seeds. So we can see them, they are dicotyledonous seeds. And here we have the seed in the fruit itself. This is the orange fruit, and we have the seeds inside it. So those are the things that we need to look at about these particular specimens that have been released by Waec. So I will encourage us to try as much as possible to go through all that you have heard, all that has been said. Try as much as possible to understand them, and try to pay attention. You can listen to them multiple times to get to understand all that was actually said. And please, I will encourage you to try as much as possible to subscribe to our channel. If you are yet to do so, subscribe to the channel so you get easily notified of subsequent uploads when we put them up on our channel. Please share this content with your friends. Let them benefit from what you are getting as well. And we would love to hear from you, so please don't hesitate to send us your comments in the comment section. I wish you success in your exams, and bye for now.